today's tip of the day is to avoid redundancy in your project description and load it with compelling keywords. Yesterday's tip, I talked about the importance of using your project title and using the characters in the project title in order and maximizing that. Something that I have seen a lot, and I called out for a first-time Kickstarter creator who can go and improve on this, is a creator that joined me for my live stream yesterday. But the title of the project that they're working on, Pulsar: The Lost Ethereal Issue 1, is the project title. And then what do you notice about the project description? Issue 1 of new sci-fi superhero epic Pulsar: The Lost Ethereal. So when I talk about avoiding redundancy, this is what I mean. A high percentage of the words in the project description for this Kickstarter project are identical to the project title. However, on Kickstarter, your project title works hand in hand with your project description. And so it's kind of a lost opportunity to simply repeat exactly everything that's in your project title. So they did get sci-fi superhero in there, so 2 keywords, but the bulk of this doesn't really do anything to advance things for this. And so I want to encourage creators to do a little bit better than that. First and foremost, we have to remember that Kickstarter is a search engine. Thousands of people are searching the Kickstarter platform at any given time, and hundreds of comic book fans are backing projects every single day. But if they can't find your project, because Kickstarter is a search engine, if they don't already know about it, if you're not sending it to them and you're not using smart keywords, they may be tough for your ideal fans to find you. All right. And so we really want to identify those keywords and make sure that we get them in our project description. Another thing that keywords do is they create instant genre clarity. If someone reads the first thing that you write in your project description, and they get to the end of that and they still don't know what kind of book that is, you've missed out on a total opportunity. So we want to do really good project descriptions loaded with keywords so that we are clarifying exactly what it is that we're offering. What this will also do is it'll help you attract the right backers. You want to phase out the wrong audience and attract fans that are looking for exactly what you're offering. And when you do this with better blurbs that avoid redundancy and are loaded with keywords, it's going to help you attract the right type of fan. And so one little exercise that's pretty easy to do is just to think to yourself, hey, what would a fan of your comic type into Kickstarter if they were looking for a book like yours? If you can't think of anything, then you probably are having trouble talking about your book and will have trouble pitching it, because people like to buy things that are similar to things that they already like. Now, everyone says they want something new, but what they really want is something like something that they already like, but maybe a little bit different. And that's where these keywords and helpful project descriptions that connect to things that audiences already care about, already like, already want in their comics. That's when your project descriptions are going to be actually really strong. All right. So some keywords or some things like, and these would be different books, but, maybe it would be a cyberpunk detective comic, or LGBT slice of life manga, or Cthulhu kids book, or grindhouse dystopian horror anthology. You just want to think of like keywords that someone could conceivably type in, that if they did, you would want and expect your book to pop up. So that's an exercise to do. And then once you've done that exercise, you can go through the process of crafting this. Some bonus tips for crafting really strong descriptions is to lead with the hook and also lean in to twists and irony. Irony and contrast and giving something familiar and then twisting the expectations for your audience in a project description or in a pitch are things that first get people's attention and then make them, shake them up a little bit. And when you can add a little bit of a twist or a little bit of irony to your pitches, it can go a long way. So here's just like an example of a project description working with a title that I think does a good job. This is one that I wrote: Oxymoron Killing Time, Deluxe Hardcover Anthology. That was my project title. I used up almost all 60 characters. It's got the name of the series, the sort of subtitle of the collection, and then a couple of the unique value premise: deluxe hardcover anthology. So it's a keyword, and it's also a unique value premise. So that's all in the title. We talked about titles in another tip. But here's the project description that went hand in hand with this: a contradiction obsessed killer traverses the time stream to wrong the greatest rights of history in this madcap deluxe hardcover anthology. Okay. So I did, there were a couple things that I hit a second time. I hit the word anthology twice, changed hardcover to HC. I used deluxe. So I was a little redundant here, but instead of, just repeating the oxymoron name, I actually said, if you don't know who oxymoron is, well, now you do. He's a contradiction obsessed killer. Traverses the time stream. So this is time travel. And I mentioned the word history. So it's a kind of a counterfactual history buff. I used a little bit of irony: wrong the greatest rights of history. It's like a twist on righting wrongs. So that worked. Here's another one: Death Transit Magpie. This is a project that Carl Kerschel is launching this month. And he was on, and he talked about us, but great project description. A young woman ferries the souls of the dead to the afterlife in this sci-fi action adventure comic inspired by Metroid and Hellboy. So we know what this is about now. Like the title itself, Death Transit Magpie. All right, Death Transit, kind of interesting, cool, but okay, what is it? It's a young woman ferries the souls of the dead. Okay, that's to the afterlife. That's interesting. And then sci-fi, action, adventure, Metroid, Hellboy. These are all rich key words that will help people connect it to things that they already know and care about. All right, just two more quick tips. Write descriptions for first-time backers, not the super fan. Sometimes I see creators and they're writing their project descriptions and they're using like specific names of specific characters or specific locations of places that they've made up that only mean something to create people that already are super fans. So, if you said, Tyrion battles Bran for control of Winterfell, that you have to have connections already to who Tyrion is and who Bran is. But instead, I would write that more such as like, a brilliant dwarf battles a crippled supernatural child for control of a family plot in the north or castle in the north, right? That would be something that it's more appropriate for a first-time backer. It draws them in, all right, as opposed to having to have that insider knowledge for your lore. And the other thing, that even if you're doing an issue for later in the series, I would still write your project descriptions with the idea in mind that the vast majority of people that see your project image, that see your title, that see your description will not have already backed your project or ever read your book before, because that's the reality on Kickstarter. Thousands and thousands of people are hitting there every single day. Most of those people probably haven't backed or read your book yet. So write it for the first time backer, not the super fan. The super fan's going to come anyway. The super fan can find out exactly what's new in this book, but you want to approach this like people are coming to this thing for the first time. And also recognize that for many of us that are launching somewhat regularly, but it might have been 6 months to a year since the last issue came out, and people might have already forgotten what they read about it. So pitch it as if people are hearing it for the first time. And then the last thing that I encourage, sometimes I probably make this mistake, but clever is great, but clear wins every single time. And so if you have to choose, it's great to, in your project descriptions, in your pitches, to be both clever and clear. But if you had to choose between the two, always choose clear, straight to the point, straightforward, because clever sometimes is too clever, goes over people's heads. And if they miss the genius because they're skimming or going through it quickly, they're probably going to miss out on your book as well. So those are some tips for you. Again, the Comics Launch Planner has a lot of the tools that I've used over the years to help make sure that I'm honing in my pitches, I'm honing in my project descriptions, I'm checking these boxes, I'm not making these obvious mistakes, and I'm talking about my project in a way that draws people in, that loads it with keywords, and that keeps it productive. And so the comic book product sell sheets that are inside the planner and the page design checklist will help you do all of that. But in short, in a crowded marketplace, the right keywords and crisp, non-redundant copy can be the difference between an interested backer and a backer who bounces out of there. And so I'm going to encourage you to do your best to use your characters, load them up with keywords, and make it a compelling read for interested backers, whether they be first-time backers or complete strangers.
Prepare to launch in 3, 2, 1.